NATO, the full story, past, present, and future. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, is a military alliance founded in the aftermath of World War II to ensure collective defense against potential aggressors and to promote security and stability in the North Atlantic region. Since its creation in 1949, NATO has been a cornerstone of international security and has played a significant role in shaping global military and geopolitical strategies. This article traces the history of NATO from its origins to its present-day operations and explores its future role in an evolving global landscape. Origins of NATO, the post-war era and collective defense. The Cold War context. NATO's formation must be understood in the context of the immediate aftermath of World War II and the onset of the Cold War. As Europe lay in ruins after the war, the United States, Canada, and several European countries recognized the need for collective security against the growing threat of the Soviet Union and the expansion of communism in Eastern Europe. The North Atlantic Treaty, 1949. On April 4, 1949, NATO was officially established with the signing of the North Atlantic Treaty, also known as the Washington Treaty, in Washington, D.C. The treaty was signed by 12 founding members: United States, Canada, United Kingdom, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Italy, Portugal. The primary principle of NATO, enshrined in Article 5 of the treaty, is collective defense. Article 5 states that an attack against one member is considered an attack against all members, obligating the alliance to respond collectively to defend the victim of aggression. The first years NATO was formed as a response to the increasing tensions with the Soviet Union and its Warsaw Pact allies. In the early years, NATO was focused on building a military structure to counter potential Soviet aggression in Europe. The outbreak of the Korean War, 1950 to 1953, reinforced the urgency of a coordinated defense system, leading NATO members to increase their military spending and establish integrated military commands. The Cold War years, NATO's evolving role, early expansions and key events. Greece and Turkey, 1952. The first expansion of NATO occurred in 1952, with the admission of Greece and Turkey. This move extended NATO's influence into the eastern Mediterranean and bolstered its southern flank. West Germany, 1955. The inclusion of West Germany in NATO in 1955 was a significant development, marking a crucial step in the rearmament of Germany. This move prompted the Soviet Union to create the Warsaw Pact, a collective defense treaty for Eastern Bloc nations. The Cold War confrontations. Throughout the Cold War, NATO and the Warsaw Pact were locked in a geopolitical and military standoff, with both alliances developing nuclear arsenals and conventional military forces. NATO's primary mission was to deter Soviet aggression through the concept of mutually assured destruction, MAD, which relied on the threat of nuclear retaliation to prevent war. Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. This standoff between the US and the Soviet Union over the placement of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba was a critical moment during the Cold War. NATO supported US efforts to resolve the crisis, which ultimately ended peacefully. Nuclear deterrence. NATO's nuclear strategy played a crucial role in maintaining a balance of power with the Warsaw Pact. The US nuclear umbrella extended over Europe, ensuring that NATO members would be defended against any Soviet nuclear attack. Détente and NATO's adaptation. The 1970s saw a period of détente, relaxation of tensions, between the East and the West. NATO's strategy shifted from merely preparing for military confrontation to pursuing diplomatic efforts aimed at reducing the risk of conflict. This culminated in the Helsinki Accords, 1975, which sought to improve relations between the Soviet bloc and the West. Post-Cold War, NATO in the New World Order. NATO's transformation after 1991. With the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War in 1991, NATO faced a new set of challenges. The alliance had to redefine its role in a world where the traditional threat, Soviet expansionism, had disappeared. The dissolution of the Warsaw Pact, 1991, The disintegration of the Warsaw Pact and the fall of communist regimes in Eastern Europe significantly altered the security landscape. NATO expanded its mission to include the promotion of democratic values and stability in the region. Eastern enlargement. NATO's post-Cold War era was marked by the integration of former Eastern Bloc countries. This process was controversial, as Russia saw NATO's eastward expansion as a threat to its sphere of influence. Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic joined NATO in 1999. In 2004, NATO welcomed 7 more members from Central and Eastern Europe, including the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, bringing NATO to Russia's borders. NATO's role in global conflicts. After the Cold War, NATO shifted from a purely defensive alliance to an organization that also engaged in crisis management and peacekeeping operations outside Europe. The Balkans, 1990s. NATO's first major military intervention occurred during the Yugoslav Wars in the 1990s. NATO forces intervened in Bosnia in 1995 and launched an air campaign against Serbia in 1999 to stop ethnic cleansing in Kosovo. Afghanistan, 2001 to 2021. Following the September 11 attacks in 2001, NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time in its history, leading to NATO's involvement in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. NATO played a key role in stabilizing the country and training Afghan security forces. The present. NATO's current challenges and adaptation. Today, NATO continues to adapt to a changing world where new security threats have emerged. The alliance faces a complex array of challenges, including Russian aggression. Since 2014, NATO's focus has shifted back to Russia following its annexation of Crimea and its involvement in the conflict in eastern Ukraine. The conflict led to renewed fears of Russian expansionism, particularly in the Baltic states and Eastern Europe. NATO responded by bolstering its presence in Eastern Europe, deploying multinational battle groups to Poland and the Baltic states to deter potential Russian aggression. Cybersecurity. In the 21st century, cyber attacks have become a significant threat to NATO members. NATO has established the Cyber Defense Pledge to protect critical infrastructure and networks from hostile cyber activities. Counterterrorism. Terrorism remains a global challenge, and NATO has been involved in counterterrorism operations, including efforts to combat ISIS in the Middle East and North Africa. Burden sharing. A perennial issue within NATO is the question of burden sharing, particularly the imbalance in defense spending among its members. The United States has often pushed European allies to increase their military budgets to meet the NATO guideline of spending at least 2% of GDP on defense. The future of NATO. Challenges and prospects. NATO's future will be shaped by a range of factors, including shifting global power dynamics, technological advancements, and evolving security threats. Key issues that will determine the future of NATO include relationship with Russia. NATO's future relationship with Russia remains uncertain. While NATO continues to deter Russian aggression in Europe, some member states advocate for a dialogue with Moscow to avoid escalation. The rise of China. While NATO has historically been focused on the North Atlantic region, the rise of China as a global power has prompted discussions about NATO's role in the Indo-Pacific. NATO is increasingly viewing China's growing military and economic influence as a security challenge. Climate change and security. Climate change is becoming a growing concern for NATO as it recognizes the potential security risks posed by environmental changes, such as resource shortages and mass migrations. New technologies. NATO is also focused on emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence, AI, space capabilities, and autonomous weapons systems, which could significantly alter the nature of warfare in the future. Strengthening alliances. NATO will continue to seek partnerships with other global organizations, such as the European Union and United Nations, to address a wide range of security challenges, from terrorism to humanitarian crises. Conclusion. NATO, a lasting alliance in a changing world. NATO has come a long way from its origins as a Cold War defense alliance. It has adapted to new global challenges and expanded its mission to include crisis management, counterterrorism, and cybersecurity. As it looks to the future, NATO faces the task of maintaining unity among its members while addressing the complex and evolving threats of the 21st century. While the future remains uncertain, NATO's commitment to collective defense and international cooperation will continue to be central to its role in ensuring global stability and security.